This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about a nonprofit organization that was created and dedicated to helping with something that we all deal with, whether you realize it or not. And I'm talking about trauma. We'll put that aside for a sec. We're going to get to that. But this is something that can really hold you back in life, control you. You don't even realize what's going on there. It really is a holistic wellness approach to making us feel better, moving our lives forward. The woman that started this organization joins us today, and she is Paula Alves. And it's great to have her on the program. Lots to talk about. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. What about you?
Very well, very well.
That's good.
And in my journey, I've learned about this trauma thing, which we're going to dig into. Tell everybody the name of your organization first.
Revival Wellness Collective is a nonprofit organization dedicated to holistic healing, that nurtures the body, mind, and spirit. I grew up I always understood with my own traumas, of course, but I always understood if we pile up, if you don't deal with things face to face, I always felt, that's not good. Because even as a child, I need to talk to someone, I need to let it out. So I always understood if you just kind of, keep it in, it's never going to be good.
You mentioned child, and let's start right there. Aren't we all still children in many regards? Because the trauma that we're talking about, and there's different types, that's piloting us right now. Our child life is like we're big kids.
Again, yeah, you know what? We are, but I'm not sure if everyone agrees, but my opinion is, we're not supposed to be children forever.
Hmm.
We're supposed to go through life the way, nature intended to be. We're a child, became a teenager, a young adult, and you act like one. But in practical, reasons, it doesn't work like that because the traumas that we have holds us back.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I always say we are so immature sometimes. We do things because there's that child full of trauma inside us who bring us back, and it holds us back for a lot of reasons, for a lot of things, and basically, is a lot of unresolved sorrows and sadness and a lot of things.
So when we talk about trauma, can you give an example? And there's all different types. I call them big T trauma, little T trauma, not minimizing anything, but there's different things that, as kids that we've dealt with.
And it's funny you say that because, of course, what could be dramatic trauma for me might not be for you, but in
Yeah.
general, I think trauma is what hurts you, and that time in life. And I think sometimes nature intended for us to go through things in life, and that's what I want to say. That's a very special thing. I don't want us to be victims forever. I want us to deal with the trauma and move on. And that move on is hard because I have my own trauma too. And that translates inside, especially when you're a child, translates as something bad. And you avoid that at any time. You don't want to think about it. You put it right there on the back of your mind because anytime when that surface, you feel like that child again. You just want to crawl and think about it. And unfortunately, that's the way our mind works. The clinch in negativity and you stay there for a long time.
You said something, all of it's impactful, but one thing that stands out, you could have two 7-year-olds and they could experience the same exact thing. Maybe it's bullying, whatever, pick anything, go hypothetical here. And one of them just rolls off their shoulder, doesn't even bother him. The other one, they can internalize that. And it could be one incident on the playground. And
And that's the beauty. Yeah, you're right.
that can hold them back as an adult. Tell us your story, Paula. What got
Well,
you here?
my story is, when I was 5, my father was murdered, and translated for me because back then, I'm not gonna blame anybody. Back then, parents, my mother, my grandma, they didn't know how to explain. That's part of life. That was bad, but everybody has to die. I'm not saying it was the right way, but I'm saying everybody's going to pass. Nobody explained that to me. So we held on for that trauma, not just myself, my brothers and my sister too. And then, again, I have a narcissistic mother, and, they usually pick one of the child, and it was me because, I'm a little different. I always confront things, and I always had the kind of personality, confrontational, in terms of deal with your fears, deal with your traumas, deal with your anxiety, deals with your attacks. I'm always like that. And so it's hard for me. So growing up in that kind of environment, I never really understood. And people look at me feeling sorry because my father died. Which, look, we all have our sad stories to tell, all of us.
Yeah.
And you pointed out one thing about bullying, right? The way I see bullying, obviously I was bullied too, right? I think a bully is someone has been bullied at home. I think a bully is well,
Mm.
obviously we all know, very insecure, someone who needs to make fun of other people so they feel good about themselves. Went through that too. Girls used to throw eggs on me. It was horrible. Middle school was bad for everyone, but I'm not a victim. That's what I want to say. I think we need to deal with everything. My children are in the spectrum, and I always put them in the regular schools, and they're always being picked their whole life. But I always told them, deal with that. Let's go through therapy. You're going to deal with that. And nowadays, they are adults. And that's, I'm very proud. I raised adults who are they're so used to bullying. Adulthood is not so hard for them. I always told them, pain comes first, and then comes reward. But you need to understand you have to go through that.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
I always look at it this way. How do you know what happiness and joy is unless you felt sadness, depression, whatever? You would never know. We'd be sitting around, we were walking through life as just, robots, baseline, just
Yeah.
everything's all the same, doesn't, there's no changes in life. What you identified in your life, definitely big T trauma there. Um, what was your aha moment where you put together the way you act now or previously till you figured this out and how it connected to your childhood?
Right. That's a good point. As you get older and you go through life, you have your family, you have your children, and the traumas are there, but you put in the back because you have a lot going on. You have to work, pay bills, blah, blah, blah,
Yep.
cook dinner. And then at one point, when you stop and you look your surroundings, because that's what happens to me. And I saw a lot of people with unresolved problems, like myself too. But I felt they are all going back to that age where they were, whatever happens, and they wouldn't grow up. They refuse, or maybe unknown to them, unbeknownst to them, they still that child, and they don't like acting an adult. They go through life doing everything what society tells them to do, but they don't act like one because the trauma holds them back. So I say, you know what? It's important for us to talk about it, and
Mm.
important for us to look for alternative ways to deal with that.
There's a place for everything, but getting to the root cause. Let's say you're having issues, you're having challenges, maybe you haven't connected, I say connect the dots to where a trauma could have come from, maybe your childhood.
Mhm.
Um, so you go to a modern doctor and they give you medicine to deal with it. It's taking care of the symptoms, but it's not going to the root cause of why you're feeling a certain way and why you have maybe for a long period of time. This is a more holistic approach. How do you help people?
Thanks for asking me that. I come from a family where people really, unfortunately, which I'm not here to say any bad or good things about medication. If you need to take them,
I
might
agree.
as well,
Sure.
might as well. But I think we need to connect, and we need to connect both of them. The healing process in a natural way. And I'm not here again to do like homeopathic path is better than allopathic. That's nothing like that. But I think we need to really truly, and it's very hard exercise. Most of the people refuse to do that. But once you do that exercise, you go inside you. And let me tell you, we're all very dark inside. It's not pretty. It is not pretty.
All right.
But when we go inside us and we start finding out, you know what? Basically, all of us are very insecure. Insecurity is always the common ground for everybody, basically. But when you look at that, you say, you know what? There is no medicine, no medications are going to deal with that. The medication will not help my insecurity. The medication will not help my complex of inferiority, my low self-esteem. It's not going to do it. You know what's
Hmm.
going to do it if you deal with it. And how are we going to deal? Some people don't have the tools to deal with that. So we need to not only talk, conversation is the most important thing for sure, but we can do it through our bodies. We can do it through our system, our, physiologically sane. You can do the meditation. I know it's a cliche, but helps a lot. And being mindful. Mindful is when you understand, for me, you're not the only one. You're not the only one who goes through trauma, has problems. We all go through things. So be mindful to other people, you know. And then comes the compassion. And a lot of people, they need to exercise that. They need to exercise compassion. They need to exercise, you know what? And I'm just not saying you should feel bad. Oh, the other person is way worse than I am. That's not what it is. But mindfulness, I think, is the most important thing.
Being aware, just being aware. And what you said before, it's just so true. If you talk to any coach, counselor, therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, that they've identified because of the traumas that you talk about, we all have a feeling of not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. And some way more than others. It depends on the situation. But like you said, we all lack confidence. We just don't want to
Mhm.
admit it,
The
you know?
truth is, the truth of the matter is, everything we do is because we want to be loved. We all want to be loved.
Yep.
You want to be loved and admired by others. And when we crack the jokes, when we have long conversations, when we're intense in our feelings and our passions, because we want to be loved.
It really is it. And that's the highest vibration. That's it
Yeah,
just it's the best. It's the top of the
yeah, that is true. Well, if you think about it, we came out of, was so cozy in our mother's womb. We were being nurtured, feeded, we were fed, nurtured. We were, what's nice there, wasn't it? When you come out, yeah, the reality is you're outside and now you have to deal with it. And I think we all miss being nurtured.
well, then in lies, maybe you have to nurture yourself before you can move forward,
You have
right?
to know who you are and then you feel good. Because the truth is, we all going to leave by ourselves too. We got to leave everything here. I mean, just right, relationships are the most important things. And of course, you don't have to be nice to everybody. You have to be truthful to everybody. You have to be truthful to yourself. Because, I know my flaws and I deal with them every day. I know sometimes I have to stop and think, okay, stop. And I have
Yeah,
techniques to deal with anxiety, and I do the techniques. We all have flaws. We all, it's not every day's beautiful.
100%. And it's kind of sad that most of us can't look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I love you. Like many struggle, many may cry doing that. I get it. I understand it. It's not easy because of all these, like you said, we are dark inside.
Yeah, and the thing is, unfortunately, everybody wants to be the same.
Mm,
We need to have the courage to be who we are. We are with all the good things and bads, because we all have the good and bad. And the bad sometimes we all hate it, right? Sometimes you look at it, oh, how come I have done that? Ugh. But you know what? It is what it is. Move on. Try to do the best for yourself and others. And that's what I tell my children. Even my daughter yesterday, she was telling me, so mom, you always say to service. Yeah, say yeah. Serve others. Help yourself in others. Never forget that.
mm.
Mhm.
I played music on the radio forever, and I still do. And I end every radio show with these words: be kind to yourself and others. Because we're not kind to ourselves. Look in the mirror. You would never say the things to somebody you love that we say to yourself. You look in the mirror every day. It's like, oh my God, look at that. Where did that come up? How? Look at that zit right there. Blah, 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 blah. You would never walk up to somebody you love and say, hey, you look horrible today. What's going on with that? You wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it.
Yeah. There's no, but now you said something, nothing better, and I'm pretty sure that happens to you, to be surrounded by people with confidence. Confidence gives us, you feel so comfortable with somebody with confidence, right?
Yeah.
Disregard of their looks or their age or gender, whatever it is, they just have the confidence. They're so comfortable being themselves. And that's a beautiful thing. And they give us the courage to be comfortable as well. And I think that's when it comes from my idea. I want to leave the legacy for my children. Whoops, where we all can be together where are you?
I'm right here. I see you. Haven't
And
left
we
you.
all can help together. And I think that idea of helping each other, it's so good to be around, surrounded by people with confidence. And when you don't feel good about yourself, all of a sudden you start feeling good.
Your organization has many different programs. Can we pick one and kind of dig into that, how you help?
Okay. You know what? I think the body connected with the mind and emotions, I think is the for me. And that's my part too, because I'm not a doctor, I'm not a licensed therapist, and I don't like to deal with professionals, which the very first option they have is to give a prescription. I think for me, it works for me, it doesn't have to work for everybody. But I think everybody should try to deal with your body, love your body, move your body, but in a way, it doesn't have to be like everybody else. You don't have to look like me or like you or anybody else. You just have to be yourself. And I think when you have this connection of emotions and body movement, I think you find a lot about yourself.
When you say movement, are you talking about just some of the basics, like getting exercise, taking care of yourself?
I love going to the gym. I used to be an athlete, and that works for me. Doesn't work for everybody. So when I say about movement, is let's find out what works for you.
Yep.
And I'm a yoga instructor. I do Reiki. A lot of those works for a lot of people. So the way my classes goes is I do a let's introduce ourselves. Let's talk about openly who we are, right? Like, hi, Paul. Hi, my name is Paula. No, not like that. But let's introduce and let's talk about openly about it. And you know what? Let's start moving our body. Is a yoga thing. I know meditation is very hard for a lot of people. Sometimes it's hard for me too. But let's find a way where you can just explore how to expel all the trauma. And it's slowly, it's not going to be in one day. It's not going to be in 2 days. The trauma has been there for a long time. Might take us a while. But you know what? Every day you're going to feel better. Today I'm better than yesterday. Tomorrow I'm going to be better than today.
It's so true about the exercise thing because I like going to the gym. I need to really dig deeper into it because I'm not seeing the results that I want. And I saw them like 2 or 3 years ago, but kind of took a break this week, was busy, had a bunch of different projects. I feel like garbage. Like I just
And
feel
you
like,
feel guilty too, right? You feel a little guilty, like, ah.
yes, but the guilt is because I've reframed things, and the guilt is more of a haven't done something for me feeling. And that
Yeah.
could also be, take 30 minutes and just meditate, whatever it is.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And you know what? That shows how hard we are with ourselves, right? It's so hard to find compassion for ourselves. And I have 10 days without going to the gym. I'm dying here. But you know what? Say, have some compassion. Look at what you're doing. You're
Yeah.
doing so much good. The gym's gonna be there. You're going back. So sometimes we just need to be patient with ourselves too.
I look at it, it's all about the mindset too. So I reframe it. Yeah, there's some guilt there, whatever. I look at the lesson because now I see, yeah, why am I feeling like a little lethargic and sluggish or whatever? Well, what? Oh, well, there's one thing missing. That would be it, moving the body. And for me, that just further demonstrates why that's important. To your point.
Right. And to your point, we say, and then you understood how important that is for you by being the absent of it. So, in
Yeah.
other words, because you haven't done it, so you see how important it is for you, how much is part of your life, everyday life, and that goes back to we can expect life to be every day is going to be beautiful and wonderful and go accordingly the way we want. It's not going to be, and actually, quite frankly, I don't want it either. It would be boring. It would be very. My life is. My daughter always say, "Mom, your life is hard, but never boring." Boring would kill me.
I 100% agree with you. It's, isn't it interesting as life goes on, what you do learn? Like you have learned a lot. You've even identified those things from your childhood, the challenges that you had, and how that connects to today. Like many of us don't make that connection. And it's only because we haven't figured it out. We haven't talked to people like you to really understand what's going on there. But once you make that connection, isn't it kind of empowering?
It's very interesting. I think so. And the way again, the way it works for me is not for everybody. I remember I was like in seventh grade when I was feeling so bad in school, being bullied and everything.
Yep.
And I had to bring like, some kind of school work. I didn't do the homework. And I went to talk to the teacher. It was an older man. And I said, "Oh, excuse me, sir. I'm sorry. I'm not, I'm going through things." And you know what he said to me? And it worked perfectly for me. He said, if you have problems, you resolve them outside of the classroom. Over here, you're gonna do what I say. And that worked.
Wow.
And then after that, he says sorry. And I say, no, because it was a click in my mind. I say, you know what, he's right. Why am I whining? I didn't do what I was supposed to. You see, it worked for me. Works
Well,
for me like,
what
but
you're
doesn't
saying
work for
is many adults do it, and it's called the victim mode, where you get into that, and then it's almost that rabbit hole you just jump down, and it's woe is me, look at this, why did this happen? Blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah
because
blah.
it's funny because I see every day people give an excuse. And I was a child when he said that to me. And that was a big click, and I say, you know what? I have to stop whining and do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah,
Just
it's
get your behind up and do what you think. And over here's like, oh, what happened? Oh, because I was sick, my car broke, whoever's going through divorce. I say, you know what? Been there, done that. Just do what you have to do. And people don't like to hear that.
it's the teacher thing. 11th grade for me.
Uh,
I was very much into art, wanted to be a cartoonist. I moved over to broadcast kind of at the same time. Um, 11th grade, big painting, fall scene. We'll never forget it. Rustic barn, wheatgrass leads your eye to it. Couldn't do the sky, wasn't coming out. Couldn't do it. I don't know. Our teacher comes by. I said, I just can't do the sky. It's just not coming out. Takes the brush and goes, looks amazing. And she looks at me with her coffee breath. Never forget that. And she says, you know what you are? You are an underachiever. And I look back at it now, and part of me says, what teacher says that? Another part of me says, thank you very much for saying that, because maybe that was the fuel under my butt to move me forward at that time. I don't know, but I
That's the
could.
beautiful thing you're saying. That's a beautiful story because it shows everything's about a choice, huh? We make choices. You could
Yes.
have telling that story like, oh, the teachers want to be like that. Just I don't like teachers. And we never went back to school because of that. Or never painted again because of that. No, you know what? You said, you know what? She might be right.
I
She's
don't
not
know.
wrong. And you know what? You were fearful, as I was. Fear is what holds us back
Yep.
and you were feared to make a mistake. I was fearful to not, I don't know. I was giving too much time for my trauma. Sometimes you give too much time for that. And instead of just put it, you know what, I'm going to do what I have to do.
Mm,
And in life, I think that approach works really well.
yeah. Well, if there's anything that anybody takes away from today, the very minimum should be choice. You have a choice in everything. Yes, life can be challenging. Stuff can present itself, but how did you react to it? That you had a
Exactly.
choice.
And you know what? Not everybody understands that the way we do. And we have to come to that point too.
Yeah.
If they need help, look for help. Look for alternative ways to deal with that. And stop dwelling on that. You don't have to dwell on your trauma. You don't have to live there. They're there. They exist. You know that. You've been living with it for a long time. But you know what? Stop nurturing. Let's move on and let's get better.
How do we connect with you, Paul? If somebody's interested, I know you have the wellness um, collective, and it's a nonprofit. How do we find you?
Mhm. Well, through my website, revivewellnesscollective.org. My number, 561 here down here in South Florida, 880-7585. I do the consultation virtually or face to face, virtually, basically, can be any place in the world, which is nice. And I have my email, which is revivewellnesscollective.org. No, sorry, support at revivalwellnesscollective.org.
Well, that's what you do. You do support. You help people.
Support, and you know what? Collective, because you know what? You're not the only one. Another thing, let's face it, we're not that special. That happens to everybody.
I love what you do and how you do it. And here's why. You get it. You get it. You understand it. This, people go through, you could listen to, 100 podcasts about this and still kind of figure it out. You, in 25 minutes, this is everything, in my
Done.
opinion.
And you know what? All respect to all professionals, but we don't need to be in therapy talking about the same thing for 30 years. Come on. Let's resolve it. Let's move on. We deserve it. We deserve to be happy. We do
Yeah,
deserve it. And we deserve to be happy in our own way, not
thank
other
you for
ways,
being here
not the
today.
way other people tell you.
Well,
Yeah.
yes, but you need to find the strength, the courage, and move past the fear to think that way. Not all of us can. Take some time to kind of
That's
figure it
right. They
out.
need help. We all need help. I
Yes.
couldn't do it by myself without that teacher calling me, telling me to resolve my problems before I go to the classroom. I wouldn't be here.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and all the insight. Looking forward next time we get together.
Awesome. Thank you. Me too.
We'll be
Bye.
right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.